So diving into what kind of gear I was using and legendaries and whatnot, I was 937 equipped eye level, and I decided to use Surface's Secret and Muse's Unwavering Will. Muses is actually a really good legendary, particularly for this kind of thing where DPS is equally as important as your output in heals. It increases the speed at which you cast Flash Heal, Heal, Prayer of Healing, and Smite by 15% when you're above 75% health. Generally speaking, you're not really the target of damage, so this is really useful. Surface obviously procs off of Power or Holy Word Chastise, sorry. So it is a great legendary, particularly to use here. Talents that I decided to go with were Enlightenment, Angelic Feather, Censor, Light of the Naru, Piety, Divinity, and then Circle of Healing. I also switched this in the latter phases to Apotheosis just for a little bit more of the kind of big output, but for the first phase particularly, Circle of Healing was what I had equipped, and so it's what I rolled with. Otherwise, everything is pretty much kind of pick your own adventure so far as talent choices, although Censor is definitely something that I would recommend because you really want that kind of hard CC in addition to Shackle that I totally forgot existed for the entire first phase, so don't do what I did, use Shackle. This Mage Tower begins by pitting you and 3 allies against waves of predetermined adds that come out in the same order with the same set every single time. Your 3 NPCs are Jared, Kelly, and Granny Ma. Jared functions as a tank, Kelly as a rogue-type assassin character, and Granny Ma as a hunter. To begin with, you'll be put against 1 Risen Arbalist. You can pretty much blow any and all DPS cooldowns. I like to pre-pot, as Granny Ma says, let's be about it, elf. But this first Arbalist basically does nothing but demonstrate the first crucial ability that you'll have to deal with, which is Mana Sting. If you're a smart priest, unlike myself, you can use Shackle to deal with that and interrupt the actual cast. If you're doing it in the same way that I did, which is forgetting Shackle even exists until after you'd completed the tower, or at least gotten halfway through it, you can line of sight using one of your allies as a meat shield, essentially. You'll want to try and use Jared for this every single time, because as you can see right there, Granny Mal and Kelly both take an excessive amount of damage from that ability. Otherwise, it's pretty much tank and spank and DPS as much as you possibly can. The mages require an interrupt be put on them, so in this case I use Chastise, when they've gained approximately 3 stacks and are mid-casting the 4th. If they give themselves too many stacks, their abilities are actually capable of one-shotting Callie and Granny Mal, and that is the end of the encounter. If you die or your characters die, you cannot res them, you cannot break combat, that is the end. I'm unsure if the Holy Priest res cloak actually serves as not cancelling the encounter, as I do not have it, but I know that the encounter does not end until your Guardian Spirit has actually faded off of you, or Guardian Angel, whatever it's called. The next ability, or the last enemy that you'll face, is a type of Risen Soldier. These guys fixate on you and deal an excessive amount of damage, and they also cast Knife Dance. Knife Dance is interruptible or stunnable, shackleable, chastisable, and does a fairly decent amount of AoE damage to your entire party. You can deal with the fixate on one add. I found it fairly easy to heal through at this eye level, but there is a wave when 2 of them spawn at once, and you're going to want to focus down the Corrupted Mage first, as the one-shot mechanic here I found a little more difficult to deal with than just healing through the 2 Knife Dances. Again, if you're a smart priest, you can just shackle one of those adds and only deal with 1 Knife Dance, but again, I forgot shackle existed. So you'll want to DPS down the mage first, and then choose to focus on one of the Risen Soldiers. If you find the damage from their fixate to be a little bit too much, you can always pop Desperate Prayer. I found this pretty effective way of dealing with them before I tried to put some distance between them and myself using Angelic Feather. You can do this, but kiting and running around like crazy isn't really beneficial to you in the encounter, as priests don't have a whole lot of kind of on-the-run abilities that help them deal with the encounter itself. So, continue DPSing these guys down. I was trying to proc my artifact weapon as much as possible, so I was spamming all of my holy words, trying to get my little Naru buddy out to help me DPS and heal. But at the end of this encounter, or at the end of this wave, is the final wave, and it has one of each enemy. I always found this one the hardest to deal with on both this and my druid, so I chose to pop heroism here, plus spam all of my other cooldowns, because there's just a lot of damage going on right here. I also used my second pot. If you use heroism here, it's fine, it just means that you need to take a bit of a break, kind of midway through the scenario later on, and allow that to reset, but there's plenty of opportunity for that to happen. I do get hit by Mana Sting here. Obviously that's not optimal, I just didn't line of sight correctly, and it put me in a little bit of dire straits, but you can see pretty easily why you do not want to take that Mana Sting. So even if you do have to let one of the weaker NPCs soak it, you most certainly want them to, because having no mana really sucks. I would also recommend, for this reason, having some non sit down and sleep mana pots, just the plain normal ones to pop, just in case. I only had the ones to kind of sit down and break combat, and unfortunately I'd already used my second DPS / healing pot, so I didn't really get the opportunity to do so. But again, these guys can be interrupted with Shackle, and then once you've got this kind of last enemy, you can run down to the next stage. There's also plenty of opportunities to sit down and have a drink, get any mana that you did lose back, and for some curious reason you can loot those guys, and I'm not really sure why. So moving into the next room, surprise, your party will be ambushed. You'll be surrounded by a bunch of little eyes from the weird little observer eyeball demon dudes. You don't want to AoE these down. They do damage every time they die and explode, so you'll just want to kind of take your time and heal up between each one. I found this a lot easier to do on my druid than I did on my priest, because I could just sit in bear form, but you can't really do that on a priest, and I didn't have guardian spirit up, so I chose just to kind of kill one, heal up, kill one, heal up. A little bit slower, but it was kind of the most effective way for me to deal with this. I probably could have popped Desperate Prayer, but these are all only things I'm noticing as I'm rewatching this video and narrating, so, you know, everyone notices their mistakes afterwards. After you kill the final NPC, you're starting to move on to the next set of enemies. There are unstable fell orbs in this whole hallway. You want to kill those first, as if you do touch them and they're active, they do disorient you. Otherwise, once you kill those, you just DPS this guy down. Him and his bats do not do a whole bunch of damage, so you can just kind of hang out, DPS them down, and just watch out for the fell orbs that do respawn. Once you've killed them, you can prepare by clicking on that gate that's to your right. There will be a couple of ads that you need to heal up, and one new arbalist or archer to kill. But this took me a little bit of time to kill. My priest DPS was not the best. I was a little bit undergeared considering current content for this. But I did like to kind of start off this encounter by targeting the one NPC that you do need to dispel. Just to kind of get a bit of a jump on the gun. Plus I use mouse over macro, so it was a little easy for me. You'll want to try and heal all three of these guys to full. You probably won't need all of them, but I just like to complete it anyway, just to have the backup plan. And then once you've healed them up, you can go a little bit further up the steps and engage that archer. She'll do the same abilities that the ones in wave or in the first step of the scenario were doing, which is the Mana Sting. She'll port to a random spot and then focus it on you. You can use these new NPCs that you just healed up to line of sight it. This next section has you run up a hallway full of unstable fellows. You can just hole in over them to death, and then just run up there. Again, they will disorient you if they touch you. It's more of a time sink than anything. As you can see, there was a 5-minute timer up on the top left of the screen. And then once you get to the top, you'll want to kill this little corruptor guy. His eyes, these flickering eyes, do the same thing. They will explode for AoE damage, but he doesn't spawn more of them. So once you kill them, you don't really need to worry too much. You just need to finish DPSing him down. Once you've completed this section of the scenario, you can take a break and wait for your heroism debuff to fall off. You can mana up, you can change your talents, and this is also where I chose to change to Apotheosis. Once you've completed your wait time and your heroism buff is full enough, you can click through the gate and move on to the final stage of the scenario. Typically, I've not been very good at this. at least trying to heal these ads. I don't know if it's maybe the way that my UI is set up, but essentially what's going to happen is Edris will move to the center and start pulling forward some of his unfortunate little ghost buddies, and you'll need to heal them to full to release them of their corrupt state. There will be 3 sets of 3, so 9 ads total. I chose to have a little bit of a rotation going on for my cooldowns to kind of ensure that I was able to heal as many as possible. I only really tried it once because the one time I got here I kind of one-shot the scenario on my priest. It took me a little bit to get the order down on my druid though. In addition to trying to heal the ghosts that he's pulling forward though, your party is convinced that each other is demons and they want to try and kill each other, so you'll also have to work on keeping them alive. So essentially you've got your own little raid team. There are some line of sight issues with the ads here too, so just make sure that they do come over that little lip. I chose to pop my second heroism for this first wave and apotheosis to try and heal all 3 ads up. As you can see, I wasn't quite successful the whole time, but if they're not healed up by the time they reach Edris, they become an ad you need to fight. So basically you're just trying to lower your body count at the end of this section. For the second section I chose to pop my second pot, use the rest of my heroism and the rest of apotheosis to kind of top off these ads, and then for the very last section I was popping Divine Hymn in order to try and finish all of these little ads off. Again, I'm not really sure if it was just the way that my healing bars were set up, but I struggled with this on both healers that I've tried it on so far. But honestly it wasn't too bad. I also found it was helpful if you displayed friendly nameplates, but that was just for me and my mouse over macros. But once you've completed this section and made sure that your actual party stays alive, there will be a small break in combat that you can use as well. I guess maybe there's 4 sets of ads or something. Anyway, you need to heal up 9 ads total, I believe, 9 or 10. Some amount, and then stage 6 will occur. Take this opportunity to most definitely drink up, and then you'll have your second pot available to you as well, especially if you did use it as a pre-pot before this wave began. At this point, these ads will become attackable, and you'll need to kill them before you can finally face Edris himself. Your party is restored to full functionality, and these ads again have the same kind of abilities that they had in the first couple stages. There's a Risen Soldier that fixates, and the Arbalest that does Mana Sting. I finally remembered that I had Shackle and that it was a thing. And I have a focus macro here that I was just using to kind of pop it as much as possible and negate any damage. I was trying to go between the 2 ads and just kind of shackle each one's special ability, but I didn't work that out too great, so, you know, I interrupted what I could. It was fine. 2 ads are pretty simple to deal with. And, yeah, you just want to kind of DPS them down. This isn't too mana intensive, it's not too difficult of a phase, but it all does depend on how you did in the prior phase. Once you've completed this particular section, you'll want to make sure that you are on the edge of the arena. Because Edris is going to start jumping on you and leaving lava piles everywhere. You'll want to pop everything you have left here. Pots and everything. But the tricky thing is, and if you've done Nightbane you'll be very familiar with this mechanic, is you'll need to drop your health before Ignite Soul goes off. Essentially you're going to deal the damage left of your health pool to all of your allies. You'll also want to try and stand as close to the remaining lava puddles as possible because they do not disappear. And you'll see later on that I did begin to run out of room. I got a little bit panicky, let's be honest. But you'll want to proc Cephas and everything as much as possible here. If you have Pride-As, that's not a bad way to switch to, or a bad one to switch to, because you're wanting to stay under 75% health, so Muses is pretty useless here, other than a kind of stat boost, but I don't have Pride-As on my Priest, so, you know, bad luck for me. Desperate Prayer is also your friend here, but yeah, you'll just want to try and kind of balance keeping your life as low as possible, also while allowing yourself to be squished. The problem being that once Ignite Soul goes off, he jumps on you again and leaves another puddle and it hurts and everything kind of sucks, and I did find this pretty stressful. because I didn't kite very well and I didn't perform too fantastically. If you manage to save heroism, you can also use it on this phase too. I just didn't have any kind of way of dealing with that very first wave. My priest doesn't put enough heals out for me to not have had heroism. But you'll see it gets a little bit cheesy here. I do actually die and was unable to DPS, but thankfully my little buds were able to finish off Edris and I did get credit for the encounter. But you'll want to try and not die. There are a number of things I could have done there to save myself that I don't realize until afterwards, but providing that you were able to complete this, you will then be gifted your neato new artifact skin. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, otherwise let me know how I did.